Hey everybody, and happy Friday. Hopefully everybody is enjoying, of course, their Friday, wrapping out the week on a positive and productive footing. We're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream. We've got actually a pretty pretty packed show. We've got a lot of different things to jump into. We're going to be talking, of course, about some brand new products where we've got actually of course, I think the long-awaited and really exciting ROG Rapture GT-AXE16000, which is absolutely just super impressive high-end Wi-Fi 6E quad-band router that we're going to be talking about, giving you guys, of course, the insights in terms of that. We've got an update on brand new ultra-wide XG ROG Swift series monitor. So that's going to be a 30-inch ultra-wide. And then we've also got a white series monitor under our V series, which is going to be just a great general purpose, but high-quality IPS-based monitor that we're going to touch on. We've got some cool promos on two ROG mice with the Pugio 2, as well as with the Gladius 3 wired. We've got some great price savings. We're going to touch on that. We've got a new actually giveaway that we went ahead and launched at PAX East that we're going to talk about, some new UEFI updates, and then of course just be able to of course feature your guys' builds in the ASUS PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So let's go ahead and get ready to jump into this. But let's see who we have here on the stream joining us today. Wow, we've got quite a lot of people here already jumping into the comment section. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us. Happy to have you here. Connor, thanks so much, man, for joining us here on the stream. Hey, Erica, always happy to have you here on the stream. Thanks so much for letting us know that the audio is checking out as well. Sniff, fantastic. Always great to have, of course, a masterclass builder like yourself joining us here on the stream. And we're going to be checking out that absolutely gorgeous, I think it's called the Gold Wings build that you submitted for the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. I'm really excited about showing that one off. H2O Computers, happy to have you here as well. We've got Ben, and we've also got DDA40X fan Bruce. How you doing, man? Thanks so much for joining the stream right here. All right, so let's get ready to go ahead and kick things off. And first and foremost, just jump into some general updates, which we usually go ahead and kick off, I think, at the beginning of the stream, which is going to be our UEFI BIOS announcements. So let's go ahead and get these out of the way. Not too many updates. I haven't posted these yet in the PCDIY group. Time frame for these, I'll probably have them posted a little bit later today, but let's go ahead and get ready to just kind of jump into this, because I do think that for some of you this update may be an important one, especially those that are going to be on the AMD side of the fence. So the updates that we went ahead and issued for our AMD series of motherboards were very comprehensive over the last few months, and a large amount of the work was done to essentially move those boards over into the 1.2.0.6 release, which was a patch B or patch C release. And that was predominantly done for a number of different reasons. There was a lot of kind of fine tuning that AMD did cumulatively in terms of kind of helping to improve things like USB interoperability and functionality. Of course, a big part of this was also being able to implement some more support for the latest generation AM4 series CPUs, which are being released by AMD, including the brand new 5800X3D. And then, of course, there was quite a number of other new CPUs that AMD has gone ahead and announced that you will need that UEFI support to implement. But some users have been experiencing some issues with what's called FTPM stutter, which when that function is essentially present, their system can potentially have an issue. And AMD did come out and let you know that essentially there was going to be a future AGESA release, which would actually help to mitigate, resolve this. And that was going to be the 1.2.0.7 release, which is what we've gone ahead and already started to issue. So this will be similar to kind of our prior rollout, where this will come in waves. So over the next few weeks, probably over about the next month and a half, we'll be rolling this out to, of course, pretty much all of the AM4 series based motherboards. So you'll just have to essentially be monitoring our updates here on a weekly basis, so you can find out essentially if your board's been updated. Again, if your system's running stable, reliable, no issues, you don't need to worry about essentially updating to this brand new AMD AGESA. But if you are specifically in this kind of scenario, then you would want to go ahead and take advantage of it. Let me go ahead and just load up a board here. Most of the boards that have gone ahead and sent this first round of the 1.2.0.7 release are going to be X570 series boards, and they're going to be under the ROG lineup. So this would be like our CROSSHAIR VIII series of motherboards. And like I said, I'll have the full list posted in the ASUS PCDIY group a little bit later today. So if anybody wants to actually check the full list, along with some of the other motherboards that did get an update, I think a couple of Intel boards, B series, maybe some H series, nothing, like I said, critical in that regard, then those will be up a little bit later today. But let's go ahead and take a look at what this would look like. I've gone ahead and loaded up the page here for the ROG CROSSHAIR VIII Dark Hero, and you would just head over to the support section. Once you head over to the support section, head to drivers and utilities, and then to the BIOS and firmware, and you'll see that there'll essentially be a newer UEFI release. Now, for this one, I don't know if it's been posted yet here for the Dark Hero, so let me go ahead and see if I can bring it up for, I think it's probably going to be up for the standard Crosshair. Give me 1 second. 8. Let's go with that one and see if that one's up there. I think it should be up for this board already. Yep, here we go. Okay, so you'll see right here that if I bring up the ROG CROSSHAIR VIII Hero, right, there's actually two versions. There's the Wi-Fi, non-Wi-Fi version. You'll see right here that there's actually a release as of today, 4/29, and it will show you right there that it says AMD AGESA 1.2.0.7. And like I said, this is predominantly, I'd say, a mature-based release, but specifically for people that are been experiencing that FTPM stutter issue, then you can go ahead and apply this. This is considered what's called a beta release. That means that we don't formally validate it. We don't actually officially support it either. So if you're essentially don't kind of want to keep in mind kind of the considerations of a beta UEFI release, then just wait until there's a formal release. Formal releases usually will follow suit, and it can vary, but usually will be somewhere between about maybe 2 to about 6 weeks in terms of the time frame for a beta to a formal release. But there's a lot of kind of variables that come into play. So again, as always, if you just want to make sure to keep in tune as far as these updates when they're coming up, just make sure to keep it tuned here, either to the weekly show, or you can of course join us in our ASUS PCDIY Facebook group. So that covers us pretty much in terms of our UEFI updates for this week. Let me go ahead and see if I have any questions right there on that side. Hey, Azipch, when you talk about essentially applying the UEFI, keep in mind that you do ideally want to make sure that once the UEFI has been completed, you want to clear the CMOS and then do a full cold power cycle shutdown. And so what I mean by that is essentially clear the CMOS, shut down the system, right? Disconnect the power, maybe for about like a minute or two, then reconnect it, reload your UEFI defaults, and then double check and make sure if everything's working correctly. Keep in mind, if you've had any type of kind of tweaked or tuned parameters like PBO, overclocking related parameters, or anything like that, you can't necessarily expect your same UEFI values to be cross-compatible. So you may have to go back and retune them to be able to ensure essentially that they are kind of applicable to that new base firmware. And the reason being is there can be changes to like auto rules and sub timings and kind of many other variables, which can sometimes cause small differences in terms of the way that the UEFI operates. Okay. All right. So yeah, David, it hasn't been posted yet for the Dark Hero. Probably be coming a little bit later on. I probably expect sometime this week. You should probably see it for the Dark Hero. Again, this, unless you're specifically experiencing the FTPM stutter issue, the almost experience between 1.2.07 and the 1.2.06 release is going to be almost identical from a features, functionality, stability, kind of overclocking standpoint. So it's not really kind of, I'd say, a critical release. It's really only specific for users that I think have been experiencing that. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and move over into our next update right here. All right, let's go ahead and maybe touch on, yeah, let's give you guys some of the updates on some of the pricing that we actually have going on right now. We actually have 2 prize pools that I want to go ahead and touch on. So let's go ahead and do that. First and foremost, right here, we still have our ASUS Pro Artist Awards that are going on right now. So there's an opportunity to win quite a bit of hardware. We've got over about $100,000 in terms of the overall collective prize pool, multiple $10,000 prize pools per each category. So photography, graphic design, film, and animation. As you see, there's tons of different essentially kind of subfields, and you can go ahead and contribute. You don't have to be quote unquote a professional. You can be a hobbyist. You just have to essentially submit your creative in any one of these categories, and you have the opportunity to win some awesome prizes. As you can see right here, exceeds $100,000 in terms of the prize pool, $10,000 prize pool between each one of these segments. So photography, graphic design, film, or animation, plus an opportunity to win some awesome ASUS hardware ranging throughout our ASUS ProArt ecosystem. So you can see we have ProArt systems, we have motherboards, we have, of course, monitors, laptops, and we've even actually got some new peripherals that just started actually launching as well. So a lot of stuff right there. This will actually be running until about the middle of May, I believe. So I think May 15th. So you still have a little bit of guys. Yeah. May 15th is when the voting closed. So if you haven't got into it, I would make sure to consider submitting. Let me go ahead and drop that into the chat there for you guys if anybody is interested. Okay. Don't worry. For those of you who are wondering about the GT-AXE 1600, I'm going to be getting to that in a little bit when we talk about our new product introductions. Okay. All right. Next up here, we've got our ROG PAX East 2022 gaming PC giveaway. So this is an awesome giveaway that we're doing right here. This is a full high-end 12th gen gaming system. As you can see right here, it's using the ROG Strix Helios chassis. So the GX601, which is an awesome chassis, got a really cool design aesthetic, tons of I/O. You can do vertical mounting, you can do traditional mounting in it. It's got really cool tempered glass design, water cooling friendly. But of course, this is going to be a pre-built system. It's going to be featuring our Maximus Z690 Hero, ROG Strix 3080 graphics card, Ryujin 2 360, so the same cooler that I've got right here, a Thor 1200 watt power supply, a 12900K, Kingston DDR5 memory, 2 terabyte Kingston Fury Renegade, and PCIe NVMe SSD. I believe the Renegade 2 is also PCI Gen 4. Then some My Mods custom cable extensions, and some sweet Be Quiet Light Wings 120 millimeter and 140 millimeter fans. So that is a pretty sweet, that's about the highest end gaming PC that you can pretty much get on the market right now, short of going with something like a TI, but a very, very high performance based system. I do believe this is because this is a ASUS ACI North American based giveaway. It is going to be only applicable to ASUS essentially entrants in terms of North America. So that would be United States and Canada. But as always, if you want to double check on anything, make sure to go ahead and check on the terms and conditions. But for anybody that's interested, make sure to go ahead and submit and get your opportunity to win an awesome 12th gen gaming PC from ASUS. And a big shout out to our friends over at My Mods, as well as Kingston, for supporting us here with this giveaway. Let me go ahead and see if we got any questions right there. Yep, Kevin, drop the link there in the chat. If you can let me know that that link went through okay there for the giveaway, that would be fantastic. But again, guys, we've been running lots of giveaways. We just recently also closed the Game and Style giveaway, and then before that, we had another, I think 3 or 4 other giveaways. So as always, that's really one of the great things too about making sure to watch the stream is you get the opportunity to make sure to keep in the know on anything that we might be doing in terms of the opportunity for you guys to win some awesome hardware. And we may be doing a giveaway actually on this upcoming AXE 1600 router, as well as also the brand new ROG series of graphics card holders. So for those of you that watched our previous stream where we talked about the Herculex, the Wingwall, and the Strix graphics card holder, stay tuned. We might be doing not only a live stream dedicating all 3 of those graphics card holders, but actually maybe doing a cool giveaway for those as well. So make sure to go ahead and keep it tuned. Okay. All right, guys. So next up, let's go ahead and jump into our next segment right here. And I just want to give you guys some cool partner announcements. So let's go ahead and get rid of these guys right here. So the first partner announcement is going to be from our friends over at Fantex. So Fantex is a partner with us in many respects. And one of the things that they're actually a partner that some people don't realize is that they do actually offer a wide range of water cooling products. And they actually do work with us in terms of cross compatibility and interoperability, including our graphics cards. So they are actually going to be releasing water blocks for our actual ROG Strix and Tough Gaming Series graphics cards. Specifically, these are going to be new blocks for the brand new 3090 Ti series cards, which we just recently launched. So if you're interested in picking up a block, this is just another one of the partners. We've got great partners across the board, including EK, Alpha Cool, Bits Power, Bysky, so many different partners that actually work with us in terms of water cooling support. So it's fantastic to be able to have a really big, diverse ecosystem. So depending on your aesthetic, the features, the functions, the layout design, and many elements, you should hopefully be able to find a water block partner that works with us to be able to go ahead and integrate into your water cooling loop with your ASUS series graphics card. They're going to be having 2 versions. So they'll have a black and then they'll have kind of a chrome version. It's a beautiful looking block design that you can see right here. Here it is illuminated, of course, with its RGB lighting. And do keep in mind that these cards are fully compatible with ASUS Aura RGB lighting control. So you can go ahead and control the lighting within Armory Crate or Aura Creator. And you, of course, do have the ability to do ASUS Aura Sync. So you can synchronize this across all your ASUS compatible accessories and products within your system. Here you can see, of course, the two different colors where we've got the black and then we have the chrome. I think both of them look fantastic. They've got that nice, clean, very nice design ID, beautiful lighting design that's going to be present on there. And they also using very good quality kind of O-rings, which are always nice to see within terms of kind of block designs. So overall, some really nice additions that you're going to have available to you. And they should be, I think, launching sometime in about the middle of May, possibly maybe by the end of May. If you're looking for a little bit more information, just make sure to go ahead and reach out to Fantex in terms of what their estimated channel availability and timelines will be. But these will be available for actually our ROG Strix as well as our Tough Gaming series. So that's actually a little bit on the rarer side. Traditionally, when we do our water block validation and kind of compatibility, that's generally going to be for our ROG Strix cards. And on occasion, we'll sometimes have Tough Gaming, but not always. So it's nice that actually you have the option to be able to get blocks for either the ROG Strix card or for the Tough Gaming graphics card. All right. Snef, of course, water cooling aficionado himself, says very nice looking water block. I would agree. Some definitely nice looking blocks from our friends over there at Fantex. Ben also gives it a thumbs up there too, and I would definitely agree. Hey, Unreal, 4K 240 hertz monitors. Nothing right now in the immediate timeline. Of course, we're going to be offering the PG279AQN, which will be a 240 hertz, 360 hertz monitor, but that'll be coming out probably a little bit closer to Q3 timeframe. Beyond that, probably we'll have nothing. We'll have probably a couple of other monitors that'll be launching before them, but nothing probably within that specific demographic. But as always, of course, if you want to find out about the latest and greatest, just make sure to keep it tuned here to the ASUS, PCDIY hardware show or a PCDIY group where I post daily updates regarding all kinds of stuff. All right. So next up here, let's go ahead and keep moving this along. And let me just go ahead and give a quick shout out here to actually one of the actual cool updates, which is going to be from our recent kind of showcase at NAB. So NAB 2022 just finished up. And so for some of you that are not familiar, NAB is just pretty much a show that's focused really at kind of creative professionals across the kind of the AV industry, right? And it's really kind of focused for, I'd say, prosumers and professionals that are in kind of cinematography, videography, 3D, broadcast. It really kind of covers a very, very broad, extensive field of individuals. But we actually took the opportunity to showcase a lot of our PA series products. And some of these you may be familiar with because we announced them initially at CES, and some of them you may not be familiar with. But I just wanted to touch on some of these cool new products that you're going to be seeing coming out at the end of this quarter, so at the end of Q2, and then moving into Q3 for some cool new products that we're going to have from our ProArt series lineup. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the first ones right here. And this is going to be for the actual PA 147 CDV. So that's this very interesting monitor right here. So this is a 32:9 aspect ratio IPS-based display, but also supports touch and stylus-based input, and also actually uses our ASUS ProArt dial technology, which you can actually see right here. This is really actually being kind of, I'd say, positioned to be actually like a tool and an accessory for professionals and for creatives, not just on laptops, but also on desktops, as you would be able to go ahead and integrate that flexibility of note-taking, drawing, actually having a vertically oriented or horizontally oriented based screen. You could position this directly underneath your monitor as well, which makes for a very interesting base kind of design setup where you could go ahead and have information. You could have, of course, kind of non-linear editors that are present there. You could have actually access panels for different types of applications that are going to be in there. And because it also does work with the ASUS ProArt dial, there will be a default integration for Adobe Creative Cloud applications. So if you're a user of like Lightroom, or if you're a user of Premiere, or different types of applications in the Creative Cloud suite, it will be a benefit to you. You can see right here that also because it's got that wide viewing angle and that IPS technology, as well as our anti-glare reflective matte display, that it can work well in direct sunlight. as well as being able to, like I said, be able to be positioned in a vertical or a horizontal orientation. So this is going to be a pretty cool little display. This one you're probably not going to see before the end of Q2. This will probably be in Q3 sometime, but I think a very cool addition that we're going to have in terms of kind of our lineup of monitors, where we're not just talking about kind of traditional monitors, but we're talking about monitors that are really kind of designed to be able to maybe complement your workflow. And I think this is a great kind of addition to our PA14 mobile display, which is also another really cool monitor, which works really well if you wanted to be able to have kind of a similar type of design, but in a more traditional aspect ratio, but that you could also kind of easily throw in a bag and take it with you. All right. Let me go ahead and just see right here. Don't worry, guys. We're going to be getting to the GT-AXE16000 in a little bit, and I will be talking about actually all the kind of e-tailers that will be available. That will actually include, I see some people that are commenting about the ASUS store. It will have limited inventory available on the ASUS store. Probably our ASUS store will probably have it skewed up first before anybody else. Then probably Newegg will be second, but I'll be talking about that in a little bit. All right. Next up, we've got a new ultra wide that we're going to be introducing to the PA lineup, and that's going to be the PA348 CGV. For those of you who don't know, what this kind of N designation means is that it will also be featuring that USB-C. We've updated pretty much all of our PA series displays to be able to support USB-C connectivity, which is great if you want to interface it in with a wider range of devices that can use USB-C and the alternate display port signal out of the USB-C bus, assuming that device supports that, along with your traditional connections like HDMI or DisplayPort. This will be a 34-inch base display, 3440 by 1440, of course, a 21:9 aspect ratio, outstanding color accuracy out of the box with factory calibration. This will, though, support 120 hertz refresh rate, which will be nice in terms of kind of a bump up from there. It does have nice pass-through cable integration. It will also have a 90-watt power delivery USB-C pass-through so that you can go ahead and power devices if you need that functionality present there, along with a USB hub, and also support our kind of advanced ASUS ProArt calibration options, including 6-color axis control and lots of other kind of cool elements for people that really are kind of taking advantage of color calibration and wanting the best color fidelity and really kind of more color critical work. So this will be another monitor that we're going to be having coming out in the not too distant future. We also continue to show off a product that we actually already do have available and that we talked about previously here on the ASUS PCDIY stream, which is our ASUS ProArt A1 projector. This is a full HD projector, but supporting 3000 lumens. That's very, very bright and outstanding color accuracy. A lot of times in these projectors, color accuracy isn't necessarily a strong suit for these units, but you'll actually see that not only does it cover a very high level in terms of the color gamut, 98% sRGB, as well as Rec 709 and factory out-of-the-box calibrated with outstanding Delta E performance, along with, of course, versatile, of course, keystone correction built in and 4-corner adjustment options, right? This is a really, really nice option and is actually already available, coming in at actually a very reasonable price point in terms of actually it being factory calibrated, offering, of course, a rich set of features and functions and tuning parameters, right? Having the long lifespan that it has in terms of the LED technology, supports wireless mirroring as well. And you can see a wide range of options in terms of connections for this. And this model is already available and coming in at, I believe, about $1,500. Here you'll see the rich range of course, I/O that you have, including HDMI 2.0, right? And then you also have your USB-A for power, which could be useful if you're using maybe certain types of dongles or kind of accessories that might be connecting to the USB, but they might require power as well, right? All right. And then last but not least, we have, of course, I know this one being of interest to a lot of people, which will be OLED. Of course, we're going to have the ROG Swift OLED series monitors coming out with the 42-inch and the 48-inch in Q3. And we will also be having our ProArt series PA32DC coming out in Q3. And these will be our OLED professional series monitors. So you can find out a lot more about these in terms of a lot of kind of the specialized attributes that we're going to be doing in terms of the design and the development, integrated color calibrator in there, specialized design that's really complementary in terms of how you can actually move and work with it, in terms of also accessing all the I/O. It's a very interesting type of product and design, which you see is not only kind of being used in a traditional monitor, but also in an on-set based display. So this will be another monitor that we have coming out in terms of the ProArt series. All right. So with those out of the way, let's get ready to jump into our new products that we have. And we're going to first, of course, going to go ahead and touch on our first product here, which is going to be the GT-AXE 1600, since I know so many people are asking about that. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and just drop those in the chat, and I'll do my best to go ahead and get to them when I can. Let me go ahead and open up a few things here just so I have them. So give me 1 second right here. All right. Give me 1 second here. Okay, here we go. We've got it right here. All right. Okay, cool. We've got everything that we need right here. So let's go ahead and take a look. So I guess first we can go ahead and just do maybe a little bit of a video introduction right here for this monitor. Excuse me, for this router. So let me go ahead and load this up here, give you guys a little bit of a preview animation. Take a look at that cool little RGB lighting, and then of course that this guy has here. All right, so that's a pretty cool little kind of just intro video that we have there, of course, for the the GT-AXE 1600. So the big thing that you find out right there in the name for the router is going to be that it's AXE. So that's going to mean that it's Wi-Fi 6E, which means that it's going to support the absolute fastest speed that's available right now in terms of the Wi-Fi 6 standard. Wi-Fi 6E being even faster than your standard Wi-Fi 6, moving into being able to support its own dedicated 6 gigahertz band. And the real thing that's also special about this router is that we step up to also being a quad band router. So this is going to be the world's first quad band 6E router. And on top of that, it's not just the router from the perspective of being Wi-Fi, right? A lot of people, when they focus in terms of routers, their focus is just on the Wi-Fi. But for us, especially, I think in the enthusiast segmentation, we care about kind of the complete experience. And so in terms of the complete experience, we also do want to evaluate things like the overall, not only the design, but of course we want to evaluate kind of the IO. So this thing is going to be stacked. It's going to have a really impressive base chipset, flagship base chipset. It's a quad core 2 gigahertz base chipset. So that'll even be faster than the prior generation ROG Rapture, which was a quad core 1.8 gigahertz. This is going to be a 2 gigahertz base processor. And then also we have an even faster amount of RAM that's going to be equipped here with even more RAM. So this will be DDR4 2 gigabytes worth of memory. I don't know that there's any other consumer enthusiast grade router on the market with this much active memory. It's not even that far ago that recently you were looking at kind of enthusiast routers that would have 512 megabytes. And those were generally maybe either DDR2 or DDR3. And then you, of course, saw Rapture models start to phase in 1 gigabyte worth of memory. But now you've got 2 gigabytes worth of DDR4 memory with that 2 gigahertz quad core based 64-bit chipset on there. Is really just a monster level of performance that is going to be built into there. And then, of course, I know for a lot of users, one of the really cool things that they've been excited about for this model is the inclusion of course, even much more robust I/O, where this model is going to be equipping 10 gigabit LAN, and there's going to be 2 10 gigabit LAN ports. There's also going to be a 2.5 gigabit WAN, but keep in mind that those 10G LAN ports also serve as WAN. And the reason why this is actually important is that if we actually kind of just step away from the router for a second, and we go here to a little bit of an announcement that maybe some or maybe not everybody might necessarily be aware of, AT&T actually made announcements earlier this year in terms of actually their telco services that they've already started to deploy this across the country, and they'll continue to deploy this, of course, throughout 2022 and then moving into next year as well, where they're actually scaling out to be able to offer 2G and 5G based tiers. Now, this is important because that means that we're moving beyond our traditional 1 gigabits ISP based service, and you need essentially a multi-gigabit WAN on the router so that you can maximize from that performance. Now, ASUS routers have already kind of known about this and implemented essentially what's called WAN aggregation, meaning in the past, we allowed you to go ahead and take one of your LAN ports and then combine them with a WAN port so that you could have greater than that standard WAN speed. So if you had, let's say, only a 1 gigabit WAN, you could combine that with a LAN port and you could have a 2 gigabit WAN. That was already available in pretty much all of our routers, but we've been transitioning many of our routers now to be able to support 2.5 gigabit WAN, and then some models can actually do even higher than that because they can do 2.5 gigabit and then combine that with a 1 gigabit to give you over 3 gigabits WAN. And then similarly, actually some models that have dual 2.5 can do WAN aggregation up to 5 gigabits. And this model is really crazy because it gives you 2.5 gigabit WAN, 3.5 gigabit WAN, or 10 gigabit WAN. So it supports pretty much the fastest speed ISPs that can exist right now in the market, with 2 gigabit ISP from AT&T, 5 gigabit AT&T service. And then brand new announcement also from today is Comcast is getting ready to deploy and start testing their, of course, ultra high speed 10G. Now, this was, of course, just a proof of validation in terms of their live network test that they can phase in 10G based ISP services. They don't have that yet available, but what you're essentially seeing is going to be that ISP providers are essentially starting to be able to offer these type of much faster multi-gigabit speed services. So you will need a router that can take advantage of bringing in these ISP services to your actual router and then really being able to give you that better performance. And so, of course, this is really kind of what we've been designing our high-end enthusiast routers for, is to be able to go ahead and take advantage of kind of the best-in-class ISP service right now, but also be ready for the future. So you're going to be able to essentially, like I said, jump on board right now. If you've got up to a 1 gigabit connection, great. But later, if you go to 2 gigabits or 5 gigabits or even 10 gigabits, you would be ready with this router. And then on top of that, because you have so much bandwidth across those 4 bands, you're really going to be able to make sure that you can really pump out huge levels of throughput to your devices wirelessly. Because the really impressive thing, of course, with a quad band based router is that you will be able to have speeds that will, even in the real world for Wi-Fi, be 1 gigabit, 1.5 gigabits, 2 gigabits plus in terms of actually wireless throughput. Now, keep in mind that changes depending on your environment, the range, and the devices you're using with, but you can really truly have even multi-gigabit speeds available wirelessly. So in terms of the design, you'll see that we have actually gone ahead and revised the design here. And it's pretty cool, where it's got this kind of like similar to the poly mode design that we had on our motherboards, where you have this kind of cool layered effect in there with the RGB lighting. You have, I believe, a total of 8 RGB lighting options that are available to you. And of course, if you don't want to have RGB lighting, you can entirely disable it, so that if you want to just have it look like this, which I still think looks pretty cool, you can do that. So RGB lighting, entirely up to you. It's your choice, right? You can see there again, on and off. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I just want to be able to go ahead and let you know, for those that are interested in what it looks like right here, right? So now next up here, you're going to, of course, see that you've got your WPS, a quick LED button right here. These actual antennas have also even been further revised from the prior generation. So we already made an update with the AXE11000 compared to the prior GT models, where these are actually quite rigid and they do lock in place and you don't need to actually screw them. So they're very, very comfortable. They have very, very good positioning, and they feel very, very kind of consistent in terms of their movement and kind of solidifying and locking in place. One thing that you may not realize though, is that the actual antenna design itself is not just these 8 antennas right here that we have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But there's also 4 optimized internal antennas which run from the PCB to the inside of the actual frame. And this is done to even further maximize RF handling and overall stability and throughput. So we actually are not just managing the wireless from these antennas themselves, but there's actually 4 antennas that are on the inside that have been mapped out carefully from the PCB to the actual internal frame. So in total, there's actually more antennas that you not see. So don't kind of just limit the perspective at just being the antennas that you see physically here. You also have some additional design differences. Thermally also, because there's quite a bit going on in here, on the inside, there's a very robust, actually multi-layered aluminum heatsink design that even features a brand new nanocarbon layering process that helps to actually reduce emissivity and also help to maximize thermal efficiency and thermal dissipation. It also reduces hot spots across the actual kind of the entire kind of section of the PCB and the kind of the onboard components that feature the heatsink as well. You do have high-speed USB 3.2. And it's pretty impressive. This is going to be comparable, I'd say, to kind of mid-tier NASs in terms of the actual performance throughput. You're going to be averaging somewhere probably around like 125 to about 150 megabytes read and write performance from the USB 3 if you were to use USB attached storage to the router. So very, very competent in terms of actually having very good performance if you did want to have kind of locally attached storage that was driven by the router on board. Okay. When we move over here to the back, this is, of course, where there's a lot that's going on this model, where you've, of course, got tons of connectivity. As I noted, 10G and 10G. These are both LAN and WAN-based connections. So you can go ahead and utilize these in kind of different kind of configurations as you would see fit. You have then the primary WAN, which is a 2.5 gig and 1G, but it also can be combined with one of these LANs in terms of what's called WAN aggregation to allow you to have even greater than 2.5G, where you could actually have 3.5. Then you have your traditional 4 1G ports that are on there. So quite a bit of connectivity that's present on here. And something that I do also kind of want to you to keep in mind is that for this router, a lot of people will just talk about a router, but we do actually within our firmware design the unit to be able to operate in different modes. So you can have this actually work as a router. You can have it work as just an access point. You can also have it work as a media bridge. And then you can also have it work as an AI mesh node. And as an AI mesh node means that you could actually pair 2 of these together and then use one of the bands. And I'm going to talk about how AI mesh would work on this unit because we have more bands and we have more physical connections that we can work with here. So I'll talk about that there in a little bit. And then of course you have all your little LEDs right there, which help you to kind of know everything that's going on in terms of status notifications. So before I kind of go ahead and go into some of the other things right here, let me go ahead and just quickly see if we have any questions right there. I'm going to go ahead and get into some more details about this router, but yes, the price point for this model will be $649, so essentially $650. We do expect channel availability to be in about the first late week of May to probably about the second week of May. Most likely first listing will be on the ASUS store, and then from there probably followed up with Newegg, probably Amazon. It'll also be available at Micro Center. Best Buy probably won't be until about the end of Q2 in terms of availability, and B&H will also be carrying this model. So it is not what we refer to as a channel-wide based offering, but it'll be definitely available at quite a number of e-tailers in terms of its overall availability. Okay. Let me go ahead and see if there's any questions that I missed there right there. David's asking, is it assumed that the mesh on this router will work with all existing ASUS mesh routers? Yes, this is a ASUS AI Mesh 2.0 router. So it's fully compatible with pretty much about like the 20, 25 plus models that we offer in terms of ASUS AI Mesh. Ideally, you would want to match this, of course, with an AX-based router. And ideally, I would even say a tri-band, not even a dual band-based router, but you could use that. Do keep in mind, though, that the performance that's for this router can really comfortably cover, large homes, even 2-story homes. I use right here in my own home, which even accounting for the kind of backyard patio garage space is around kind of 2,800 square feet, something in that range, right? And one router covers almost pretty much the entirety of my home. And that even would start to go into actually the backyard and the patio area and the garage, right? In most situations, probably in about 80%, 85% of cases, a high performance router like this will give you the coverage that you need. And only what we'd say kind of either in very kind of challenging RF environments or in even larger environments, would you potentially maybe need to go into mesh. And the disadvantage of mesh traditionally is going to be that you're limiting some of the throughput because you're taking one of the bands. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how this plays out, because there are some kind of cool things that we've done here in terms of that, since we have so many bands available, right? How you can go ahead and play around with this router, right? So let me go ahead and bring up some of this here. So again, remember, this is a quad band based router. You've got 6 gigahertz, you have 5 gigahertz, and then 2.4 gigahertz. And of course, with this model, this is essentially making access to 760 megahertz channels, which is going to give you essentially that fastest level of throughput and performance. Do keep in mind that that is dependent on your RF environment, and not every environment will every channel be available. We can't guarantee that just because there are some spectrum based limitations depending on where you're at in the devices that are present, as far as whether or not you will essentially have access to all of them. But this router does employ what's called zero DFS, which means that essentially once we detect all of that, we can essentially switch over to those channels without you having to wait for anything. And it's a much smoother process than it's been in the past for a router that would have access to sometimes additional spectrum or additional channels. So when we take a look at kind of how you can play out things, right, we talked about that dual WAN where you could either do the 10G or you could do the 2.5G, right? And in terms of the backhaul, by default, the way that we set up our backhaul implementation is we have an automatic essentially option. And this will automatically kind of scan your environment and help to kind of define what is going to be the best for throughput, stability, and overall kind of reliability. And in most situations, this probably means that it's going to use the 5 gigahertz connection, not the 6 gigahertz. The main reason why I wouldn't generally use the 6 gigahertz, even though 6 gigahertz would generally be faster, even provide more bandwidth, is because 6 gigahertz, of course, doesn't have the same range. In the same way that 2.4 is farther in terms of the range that it can cover than 5 gigahertz, 6 gigahertz is going to be shorter than 5 gigahertz, right? But depending on your environment, maybe you could get, very good stability and range with the 6 gigahertz. It just depends on where you're kind of laying out the routers. So you could go ahead and manage this yourself, but we do recommend leaving it in auto. But you do have an option within the WRT firmware that you can manually set the backhaul. So you can set the backhaul to either 5 gigahertz, or you could set the backhaul to 6 gigahertz, or you can also do a wired backhaul. So wired backhaul, again, if we go back to the wired ports, right, you could use actually the wired ports on here as a wired backhaul option, which would be, of course, very advantageous because that's going to be the fastest and the most stable option. So if you can run just one cable from one point to another point and then have the two routers together, that would allow you to have an outstanding backhaul. And then the other big advantage of that means that all the wireless bands would all still be accessible. So you're no longer losing one of the bands. But that is one of the advantages of a quad band architecture, is that normally in the past, if you had tri-band, you would then only have 2 bands because one of the bands was being used for the backhaul. But now with the quad band, you could still even keep 3 bands, right? And then one of the bands would then be available, right? So you've got kind of the most flexibility to go about how you want to be able to implement meshing 2 of these units together. Okay. And that 6 gigahertz, it is important that do keep in mind that ideally for the best performance and to be able to maximize from Wi-Fi 6E, you do need to have Wi-Fi 6E clients and drivers that are certified for those devices. So on a mobile device, like on something like an Android device, that's already done for you. But on Windows, Windows 11 is a certified platform for Wi-Fi 6E. So do keep that in mind. And of course, ASUS, we do offer a Wi-Fi 6E ecosystem. We already have Wi-Fi 6E add-in cards. We, of course, have motherboards. We have laptops. We have phones. We have mini PCs. We have pretty much all products that already come with Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 6E. And if you want to add it, like I said, you can add it through some of our add-in products, right? So again, that's a recap there of the I/O configuration. And let me go ahead and just show you guys the add-in card solution here really quick. I'm also going to go ahead and check right back in the comments here. Again, if anybody has any quick questions on any of the elements that I've gone ahead and touched on, because I did talk about a lot of different things there. Now, I'm also going to just quickly touch on some of kind of the features and functions there within the router in terms of some of the kind of the parameters that it might have available. So give me one second right here. Go ahead and see right here. Does the 6 gigahertz band offer seamless handoff with AI mesh? You could, yes, but again, from a stability standpoint, it's always kind of be complicated to know, right? That's the reason why we do monitor that information in terms of the RSSI information, in terms of kind of the wireless signal strength. That's why we do recommend that it kind of be just set to automatic. Generally, the routers aren't going to be moving, so in most situations, it would probably stay static to the band that it's gone ahead and defined. But it could potentially shift over in different scenarios, right? And again, again, if you want to test it yourself, you could go ahead and set it to that. But ideally, automatic would be the best option, as we'll kind of automatically determine kind of your RF environment and kind of throughput, stability, and performance, and assign the band that we think that makes the most sense. And there are some priority options also where it could actually prioritize first, let's say trying to go first 6 gigahertz, and then if it doesn't do it, it could then go to another option. Okay. Two mesh routers gives me in my house, yeah, full coverage. Yeah, definitely for sure. I mean, if you've got a very large home, so I'd probably say, around 3,000 square feet or larger, or you've got very dense, a lot of wall environments, and you might need mesh to be able to ensure kind of full coverage over, of course, that entire space. But like I said, we find that in most cases, a single router, especially a high-end router, can generally give you the coverage that you need. And like I said, you're not compromising any channels. But that's the great thing about the ASUS AI mesh technology, is that you can take any one of our routers, and if you find that you need additional coverage, you can pair another router with it, right? Um, Hey, Reese, availability for the UK. I can't say. You would actually have to check with ASUS UK. Every region actually has its own kind of what's called product matrix, whether they carry the product, and then their timeline for release and availability and respective pricing. This is a globally launched product, so I would expect probably the UK to probably be similar to us in terms of its rollout, but I can't tell you exactly when they would roll out. So you would have to actually check with them. Hey, Mike, we'll be getting to the builds in a little bit there. Um, The size, actually, I'll double check on the dimensions. It actually should be pretty similar in terms of the actual dimensions, the shell of the body, but internally, actually, as APEC BTS noted, is actually, yes, it is going to be a heavier based router. So the AXE 11000 was already pretty heavy, but this is going to be even a little bit heavier. So just some of the cool features that the unit does have that I wanted to be able to go ahead and touch on that sometimes people aren't always aware on here is going to be, let's go ahead and talk about just some of the kind of cool options right here. So give me a second. One is that we do have kind of optimized game profile options, right? So of course you can go ahead and select actually different game titles, and we'll make actually automatic adjustments to be able to go ahead and do things like open NAT for you. This can work on across wave of different types of devices. So whether it's like a PC or whether it's a console, a mobile device, this can also actually co-work with the Outfox service too, which actually allows for game server acceleration and prioritization. So that's a kind of nice, cool feature that sometimes people aren't aware of that we have. This is outside of also the dedicated gaming port, as well as the quality of service technology, where you can automatically prioritize your gaming devices. So if you have a gaming device, let's say like an Xbox or a PlayStation or your laptop or your desktop, you could set that as the primary device within all the devices to receive actually the lowest latency in terms of prioritization across the network. And then on top of that, there's a second layer of actually prioritization. So outside of physically prioritizing that device in terms of processing, you could also prioritize packets. So once you enable this option, we do what's called deep packet inspection analysis, where we actually monitor all the packets, and specifically we can prioritize gaming packets ahead of other packets. And this can be important because under gaming, take for instance, gaming isn't generally related a lot to bandwidth. Take for instance, like a video, streaming video is a lot more demanding for bandwidth, right? You could be talking about, 50, 100 plus megabits if you're talking like 4K HDR, right? But for gaming, it could be sometimes like 10 megabits or even lower in terms of the amount of actual data that's being sent, but it can be very latency sensitive. So actually, if you have, 15, 20, 30 devices that are all kind of asking for traffic at the same time, you may want to prioritize your gaming packets above everything else in that gaming system. So you can do this within the WRT software and also within the mobile app. And you can do this all on the fly too. So it's very, very kind of easy. You'll see that there's different options right here where you have also the game port, which is an automatic prioritization if you physically connect it to the router. Game First, which works with a wide range of ROG laptops, desktops, and motherboards, where if you have the ROG Game First software, if you go in the software and you ask it to scan the router, it will know that there's an ROG router there, and it will automatically prioritize that system to the router, and you don't have to even go into the firmware to make the changes. Essentially, it knows that it's an ROG product, and they want to essentially get the best performance from each other, so we'll automatically prioritize it. There's the Game Boost, which is that essentially that form of UDP packet prioritization, which can be enabled. That can work in conjunction with Traffic Analyzer and with something that we call deep packet inspection technology. And then there's also the Outfox service, which is pretty cool. Some people aren't familiar with Outfox. Outfox. Some people think it's a VPN. It's not technically actually a VPN because they don't use a VPN protocol. They actually use proxy protocols. And it essentially just allows for more efficient routing, because what you're doing is, instead of going through potentially multiple hops, and also the way that those hops are actually managed, you can actually get a reduction in overall point-to-point latency. And the really cool thing that I like about Outfox is that Outfox has a do no harm policy. So what they actually do is they'll actually check the endpoint latency. And if they find that their server connection isn't going to give you actually faster performance for the game server that you're connecting to, it won't actually make a change. It'll actually keep it the same with your same active connection. So you pretty much only kind of get a benefit. The only scenario that gets sometimes occasionally tricky, and it doesn't always happen, is that if you change servers in the same game that you're in. So let's say maybe you're like in Rocket League, you're playing something, and all of a sudden a match ends, and then you go into another match, but that could be hosted on another server. You could actually have a changeover, right? Because you're no longer being hosted in the same server anymore, right? But these are some of the advanced features that specifically why we quote unquote have a gaming-based router. There's also some other cool things that are in there, like we have integrated speed testing, where you can actually do WAN-based performance logging. You can check this, you can benchmark and keep all your stats and tracked inside of the router from an endpoint standpoint, which is pretty cool. And there's quite a bit of kind of other functions and features, and you guys can definitely check out some of those really cool options that we've talked about in the past if you check out some of other streams on kind of networking. But overall, that is going to be the GT-AXE16000. I'll go ahead and just see if anybody has any other kind of remaining questions here on the GT-AXE16000 before I get into it. And excuse me, before I go into the next product. Actually, here, I do have a screenshot here of the deep packet inspection analysis. So this is kind of one of the cool things that you can do, is that normally, even for people that like want to get really crazy, they might actually have to get something like a pfSense box and then install actually a packet inspection tool to do this. But we actually offer this in our firmware, where once you can toggle this, you can actually break down kind of tracking all your data, either by device or even by app. So you can actually see right here where you could actually check how much data is actually being used across every single device in your network. You could then even break that down per app. So you can see, like right here, YouTube, Hulu, Netflix, right? You can see this broken down in kind of different types of data sets, and you could go all through this. So there's a lot of really cool management options, filtering options, prioritization options. And also, for those of you that want to be able to run VPN, keep in mind that VPNs generally have a pretty heavy penalty on the processor when you run them on the router. But the benefit is that if you run them on the router, all the devices can benefit from the VPN, as opposed to having to install a VPN to each device. And the really cool thing too is that this router supports what we call VPN fusion. So you can even leave some parts of your internet connection essentially open, not under the VPN, and then another part of your connection actually running with the VPN. So really advanced options that traditionally you'd have to have like a more advanced type of OS environment running some form of an advanced kind of switch firewall box, like a pfSense box, to be able to maybe do some of these things, but they're already built into the router. So pretty cool. Somebody's asking, can we see what everybody is doing on the current router as well? Yeah, you can see all this information, and you can get real time. You could even track it to where you could see people, what websites people are visiting, and you can break it down per client. So you could literally see, like, you want to go to this laptop, to this desktop. You can see all that broken down. You can see it by hour, by week, by month. So you can get all kinds of really cool information. And you know, especially like in a household environment, if you just want to know what devices are bringing in data, this can be really important. So like you can got to get a clear understanding, you know, what your IP cameras are doing, or what your laptop is doing, what your desktop is doing, whatever is kind of going on. You can get a really clear sense of kind of how your systems are working. Talk about the glass top on the ROG. All right, so yes, we have a very, very cool design on this unit, where this has got a bit more of a premium design aesthetic to really kind of elevate the look and feel of the unit. So I think I showed already off the image here, but we'll go ahead and show it off one more time, where it, of course, has a very, very cool, of course, design, where in the prior generation, this we actually had kind of just a piece of plastic, and there was a molded, actually diffused acrylic layer that actually had kind of the cool ROG lighting. But this actually design is, I think, quite a bit more premium. It's also easier maybe to clean if you want to have it, but it is also going to be a little bit more of a fingerprint magnet. But overall, it does kind of elevate the overall kind of look and feel in terms of how it is. So overall, pretty cool. And again, if you guys are pretty much looking for kind of the best of the best, this is really going to be it. There's just not going to be a faster router out there if you're talking about something where you need really the fastest Wi-Fi speeds, the fastest physical Ethernet speeds, the fastest chipset, and really kind of that super advanced kind of firmware level support. It's also going to be there. So that takes care of the GT-AXE16000. All right, next up, let's go ahead and jump into the, I'm sorry, again, to recap there, 649 coming out in mid-May in terms of that model, okay? Next year, we've got the XG 30, excuse me, sorry, give me one second here. The XG309CM. So this is going to be an ultra-wide right here monitor. It will actually support a pretty nice set of specifications in terms of being up to, I believe, 220 hertz in terms of its overclock speed on this model for the actual refresh rate. Let me see if I can bring up the product page for it. Yeah, here it goes. Okay. So you can see right here, it's 29.5 inches, 2560 by 1080, supports up to 220 hertz. Standard will be 144 hertz, 1 millisecond gray to gray. This is a fast IPS-based panel. It supports the extreme low motion blur technology, including adaptive sync. So we call that ELMB sync. That's essentially like a backlight strobing technology, which if you've never kind of been familiar with it or used it, it's very cool because it allows you to have much better motion clarity in certain games or certain scenarios. Maybe not useful in every scenario, but it's something that you can go ahead and try out, which is pretty cool in terms of just giving you some more options to be able to improve motion clarity. In addition to that, you have USB Type-C support, which can also be used as a KVM, which is pretty cool. So if you have multiple devices connected to one system, you can essentially have just one keyboard and mouse and then toggle over in that regard. Plus, it also supports up to 15 watts of power. This is a higher than standard gamut coverage. So you have 100%, 110%. So it's going to be nice and punchy in terms of the actual colors. G-Sync compatible. And this also integrates a tripod socket. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Again, here's the high-level specs. It does feature the new wide base design, which even gives you more room for your desk, but this will be compatible with the ROG desk mount kit. So the desk mount kit is pretty cool because that will give you the flexibility that you can essentially kind of C-clamp this, and you can have all your desk space back and then still be able to get your standard ergonomic adjustment. I'll show you the desk mount kit in a little bit. Let's see right here. You can see the KVM and the pass-through power support, right? Quick charging, which is nice. You could have a cable there for just the 15 watt of quick charging if you wanted to kind of physically quick charge different things like your mouse, your keyboards, your phones, you know, different types of devices. So if you don't necessarily need it for, let's say, like a laptop or something like that, then that could be advantageous for that. And here at the top, you'll see that there's an integrated actually quarter mount. So that quarter mount will allow you to essentially attach anything. You can see right here, you could attach a webcam. You could actually attach a multi-arm cold shoe so that if you want to have a light and a cam, you could do that. You could have a mic and, and a light and a cam. All of those on there and mounted and be able to be positioned. So that's really nice. And it's there at the back of the monitor. So that's a cool level of functionality that we have there. You do have the lighting, which will actually be able to be kind of shown directly there on your desk, which is pretty cool. All of kind of our ASUS gaming optimization modes, including Shadow Boost, Game Plus, and Game Visual. And one thing that I really like for a lot of people that they don't sometimes keep in mind here is, let me see if I have it here installed, is that this monitor does support our display widget software. So right now I don't have our physical monitor installed that's compatible with it, but you can see right here that in Windows, if you open this software, you don't have to use the physical buttons on the monitor to make any controls. So you could adjust the brightness, the contrast, the sharpness, adjustment blue light filters, enable shadow boost. You could have different profiles and settings. You can toggle between user customization, FPS mode, different kind of presets that you want. There's multi-frame, which is really cool, which actually has different kind of isolated boxes. It's kind of similar kind of the snap options in Windows 10, Windows 11, right? You also have App Sync, which I really, really like. App Sync will let you profile essentially different applications with different monitor presets. I love this. So you could open up your browser and have it set to like, let's say sRGB, but then when you open up something maybe like Overwatch, you could have, more brightness and higher contrast, right? And you could adjust maybe the color temperature. And then all of a sudden, if you went then into another game, maybe like, like Warhammer, and it's got a darker environment, you could punch up shadow boost, right? And you could punch up brightness, right? You could do different things, and it will automatically switch just once it detects that executable. And you can do that for anything. You can do for web browser, for an image editor, for a game. That's under the app sync feature. And so that's a really cool feature. We don't even have that listed on the product page that's a feature, but that is a feature. It's called our display widget software. For the I/O on this monitor, you've got HDMI 2.0 display port. You've got that Type A connection, 2 ports, USB Type-C, and then a 3.5 millimeter jack. Ergonomic, you can see you've got height, swivel, and tilt, right? And then let me quickly just show you here the desk mount kit. This unit is compatible with the ROG desk mount kit. Here it is, yeah. Right here, you can see, and that allows you to kind of really easily just clamp that directly into your desk so that you can have a much cleaner kind of design setup if you wanted to. And this monitor will be coming in at $449 in terms of the price point. And probably, again, same thing, and probably about middle of May timeframe. So that is, again, going to be the XG309CM. And I will drop this into the chat again for anybody that has any questions. Let me quickly go ahead and just make sure I also drop in the link in the chat there for the the GT-AXE16000. And if anybody has any questions on any of these, then let me quickly just check our comments, make sure that we don't have any questions right there. Hey, APTech, we already have tons of mini LED. We were the first to actually release mini LED on the market before anybody else. So we have ProArt series that are mini LED. We have also mini LED that are under our ROG lineup, like the PG32UQX. We have another mini LED that's coming out with the PG UQXE, right? So yeah, we definitely have had quite a bit of mini LED, right? Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and all right. Looks like we had just a little bit of a freeze there, guys. If you can go ahead and just confirm for me that everybody's letting me know that the audio is still okay, that would be great. Video is still okay, and we'll keep moving this along with our next product there. And I believe I dropped in the links for both the GTXE and the monitor, right? Yeah, okay, great. So let's get ready to jump into our next product here, which is just a minor update, not a big one. And that's going to be for a more basic monitor. And it's going to be one of our white series monitors, one of our V series monitors, so the VY249HE-W. Here, Erica, thanks so much. Okay, very, very good. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look right here. This is, again, not going to be necessarily for every single, of course, enthusiast out there, but this is just another addition to our V series, which is kind of our general purpose, but still a nice quality IPS-based panel, a white-based display, which isn't necessarily that common, energy efficient, right? Nice thin bezel design, and also has a couple of cool design elements to it that I'll talk about right here. So you can see right here, it's got a nice, clean design, white base, right? Thin bezel design. IPS, right? So you're going to get good color reproduction, good viewing angles. This will support higher than standard refresh at 75 hertz. This also does feature our antibacterial technology, which you started implementing in a different range of products. This is part of the polymer, and actually the ionization process helps to essentially make sure that it's permanent, so you don't kind of worry about wearing out. Essentially, just what it means is that there's an inhibition to that when you touch it, you don't have to necessarily worry about the bacteria building up on the frame of the monitor, especially like in a multi-household environment. It can be advantageous that kind of the surfaces that you're touching just have a lower likelihood of essentially maintaining bacterial buildup or infestation. So again, not going to be a huge point, but it is just nice to know that it's present there in terms of the design, right? And let me go ahead and just open up the product page for this one really quick, just so I can go ahead and touch on a few points here. This is also going to be pretty price aggressive in terms of the price point. I think this is only going to be, Yeah, $159. So it's not a very expensive monitor. Again, we do have gaming monitors that are going to start to be around that similar price point, so that if you cared super about, of course, refresh rate and things along those lines, then those might be better options with you for like the tough gaming lineup, or some of our VG series gaming monitors. But again, if you wanted just something nice, clean, simple, and white, then this is not necessarily a bad option, right? So I do want to go ahead and also double check here. Head over here to the tech specs. So give me 1 second. And I think this is a ultra low power state 2 monitor. Let me check right here. Yeah, so this is certified. Yeah, so in your power savings mode and power off mode, right, 0.3 and 0.5 watts, which is just one other thing that I wanted to go ahead and double check again. And kind of in that kind of nice usage scenario, there's a lot of people that tend to leave their monitors on and don't turn them off. So it's nice to know that you have ultra low kind of power savings envelope there too. And keep in mind, the other thing too is for a lot of other monitors across the board, and some people don't even realize this, even for higher end monitors like LG and Samsung, on their monitors in the US, they only give you a 1-year warranty. ASUS across the board on all gaming monitors, tough gaming monitors, V series monitors are all 3 years in terms of our warranty. And we haven't actually officially disclosed zero bright dot policy, where neither LG or Samsung even have a disclosed zero bright dot policy. So keep in mind that even at a low price point or a high price point, I think that is something to also evaluate, that it's not just the features and functions and the specs that you're looking at, but even something like the warranty consideration in terms of how they warrant their product. Okay. All right. So let me see if we had any other quick questions right there. Hey, Michael, thanks for your feedback on the VS247. Yeah, that's actually exactly kind of like the point with these V series monitors, is that we try to just make a balance. It's just a general purpose monitor, right? This might be a monitor that you might just use as an accent, right? Maybe putting it up in a secondary space. You don't need something that's super expensive, but you want it to be maybe from a good proven manufacturer like ourselves, right? Has a good, decent warranty, looks good, and might give you some of these other, like I said, nice little things, like maybe a little bit higher refresh rate, right? Maybe give you, the anti-back design, right? Different things along those lines, so it's great to hear that you've had a positive experience in that regard. All right, so that wraps up pretty much the 3 new products that we had to be able to dive into there, right? With the the GT-AXE16000, the ROG Rapture router, and then also the brand new XG series monitor, and then now that ASUS, VY249HE-W monitor, right? So let me go ahead and just drop that one in the chat there too. And that one, same thing, is probably going to be around the same release time frame, probably about early May, mid-May timeframe in terms of its overall release. Okay, so now let's get ready to go just quickly into 2 quick promos on our mice, and then from there we're probably going to get ready to kick off our our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So I've got 2 very cool, I'd say kind of like little promos right now that we have going on. Do I have it over here? Yep. So this is one of my favorite mice that we have in our lineup right here. This one right here is going to be our Gladius 3 wired. So this mouse is normally $90, and right now the Gladius 3 wired is going to be on promo at Amazon for $50. So it's literally going to be $40 off. So you get a outstanding sensor. It's a specially tuned bin sensor, guaranteed in the factory production for essentially less than 1% CPI deviation. Very few manufacturers do any type of actually tuning and actually sensor binning in production process. And so that's something that we're actually doing specifically with the Gladius 3 right here. It's got the 100% Omni Feet design. So those are really outstanding skates. They're specifically tested to be able to have outstanding, actually smooth tracking performance, right, across all types of service at different angles. Really, really great. And keep in mind, you also get a second pair of skates inside the box, right? So we give you 2 pairs. So that's great. Normally, even if you buy a replacement set, it's going to be like $5 or $8, but you get another set inside the box. You've got this super lightweight ROG paracord cable, which is super soft. We actually tested this against other competitors, softer and lighter than other competitors. Really, really nice in terms that it just moves around. It doesn't drag. It's got a really nice light and feel to it. It's going to have multiple buttons on it right here in terms of 1 button, 2 buttons, 3, 4, and then DPI. And then there's also going to be a profile button because it does have 5 onboard memory profiles, 2 RGB lighting zones. Let me go ahead and plug this one in here. I can give you guys a little bit of maybe a quick shot of it on a little bit of a close-up cam really quick if anybody wants to see. But you'll have one RGB lighting zone, another RGB lighting zone, and this mouse also does feature, of course, one of my favorite features, which is going to be our ROG push fit socket design, which means that if you want to be able to go ahead and customize your mouse switches, you can customize your mouse switches. And and for anybody that's watching this, I'm going to give you one of the cool kind of JJ hacks in terms of something that you can do to kind of customize your mouse switches. So let me go ahead and just get my camera set up here, a secondary B cam, and just show you guys here a little bit of a close-up shot. All right. And I will drop the link there into Amazon, but if you guys go check it out right now, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you can go see it on Amazon right now. So here you guys can see that is going to be the Gladius 3. It's got a nice ergonomic shape to it. Works well for actually larger hands. So even if you're going like me, you got larger hands, you can do palm, you can do claw, you can do fingertip, right? You've got that one RGB lighting zone, really nice. This does come with also our premium, these right here, it does come with our premium ROG micro switches. So these are really nice, high quality micro switches, 70 million clicks, and they actually have a gold plated electrical junction. That gold-plated electrical junction allows them to be much better in terms of reduction for the likelihood of having any type of double click syndrome issues, and also reduction of oxidation, which would generally produce kind of early failure. This mouse is also pretty special in that it's one of the only mice on the market that actually gives you the flexibility to be able to support optical switches. So you can do these Omron optical switches, or you can use any one of these. Any one of these micro switches are all an option in this mouse. So you can go ahead and set it up however you like. So the cool thing too here in terms of kind of just your mouse, if you wanted to, you just can see right here that there's going to be a rubber grommet. So I'm going to go ahead and take out that rubber grommet. And then there's one more rubber grommet here I need to get out, right? So you've got 2 rubber grommets. Go ahead and adjust my mic here just a second. And right there. And the really cool thing about this is this feature doesn't matter whether you're talking about Glorious, Pulsar, Logitech SteelSeries, Razer, Corsair. None of them have the ability to have this easy type of disassembly and also the push fit socket design, right? So the push fit socket design means right there, now we have access to be able to take advantage of changing out our switches. And if we wanted to use different switches, we could do that. And you could go with different switches, which were lighter, which are softer, which are quieter. You can go about kind of really customizing it to whatever works well for you. We do give you a cool little tool. Do I have one in here? Let me see right here. I think I have got my tool over here somewhere. I can do it with my bare fingers, but sometimes some people find it a little bit harder to actually do with their fingers. Yeah, here it is. And you get this inside the box, but you can see right here, you can just take the micro switch, take it out, and let's say maybe you then wanted to go with some TTC, gold proof, dust proof. These are actually going to be lower in terms of the overall performance metrics in the ROG micro switch. So I don't know, maybe like I said, you want to put in the optical, or maybe you want to put like in a KL-GMA8 micro switch, and bam, right there, you just install it. And now you've gone ahead and installed your new micro switch. You can put your mouse back on, and now you're good to go, right? And you are set. So really, really nice. And I'm going to show you guys a really, really cool hack here. So let's go ahead and show you something here. So this is an ROG Strix Impact 2, and I've gone ahead and modified this. So if you guys normally can hear, let's go ahead and listen to what a traditional mouse switch sounds like, right? All right, so let me go ahead and go back here, guys. If anybody wants to see anything else on the mouse, let me know right here. But here I've got the ROG Strix Impact 2, and I made a customization here. So I took our standard ROG micro switch, but then I modified a silent micro switch. So let's go ahead and listen. So that's how a standard one sounds, but maybe you want something quieter. Let's go to the other one. Tell me if you hear the difference. So did you hear the difference? That's a pretty cool mod that you can do. So I will actually show you here how you can do that mod. You guys are interested. So right here, these are what are called silent micro switches. And these traditionally, you can't fit these by default. You have to mod them just a little bit. And I'll show you actually how you mod them. But here, you guys can tell me if you can hear the difference. This is your black silent switch, and this is your red silent switch. The reds are the most silent. Reds. I have two different fans going on in this room, so you might hear a little bit of kind of some general sound. Okay. And all you need to do is to mod this is literally just get these micro switches. They're very inexpensive. You can get them online for a few dollars for a pack, literally of like maybe like 20 for like $5 to $8. And you take a file and you will just file this off for about, I'd say probably like about like 5 to 8 minutes, alternating each sides. And then once you're done with that, then you'll just put that into the top slot there for the actual push fit socket design. And if you wanted to, again, have those quieter mouse switch, you know, for whatever reason, right? If that's your preference, then you can do that. So let's go ahead and listen to that again. So pretty cool, interesting mod right there, guys, right? So let me go ahead and just link this there in the chat. See if anybody's got any questions right there. So David says a good price. Yeah, it's a fantastic price. There's not, I think, a better mouse than that right now for this price. This is, like I said, literally a flagship grade mouse in terms of its overall construction quality, the profiles, the sensor, the design, the feature set, right? A really, really great deal. Geeksmo. Yes, this actually does feature the pivoted button design. So the pivoted button design is pretty much like a hallmark on pretty much all of our current ROG mice. So the ROG Strix Impact 2, the Chakram, the Spatha, the Gladius, all of those are going to have the push fit, the pivoted button mechanism design. Yeah, the second one is really hard to hear. The silent micro switch, it is very quiet. Pretty much almost what you hear more is just that slight actuation between the top and the actual the mouse switch itself, right? So it's very, very, very quiet. It's nice. The trade-off that you're going to make though is the operating lifespan. Those micro switches, they're still rated for millions of clicks, but it's 3 million clicks versus something like the ROG micro switch, which comes in the mouse switch, is rated for 70 million, right? But they're still, you know, nice, solid, clean, consistent switches. And if you wanted something quieter, it's nice. And, you know, the ability to be able to swap them so easily, you know, it doesn't take you long. So it's nice to be able to kind of toggle them out there depending on what you want. Hey, Mojo, Shaka X you should be looking out next month sometime. So in May. Okay. All right. Very, very cool. Looks like, let me go ahead and try that one more time. Looks like maybe that link did not go through there for Amazon, but otherwise, we're going to get ready to go ahead and kick off the ASUS PCDIY Builder Spotlight, guys. Make sure to go ahead and, like I said, check out, if you're looking for an awesome mouse, make sure to check out the Gladius 3 wired for $40 off. I think it's a fantastic deal, a really, really great mouse. And also another option that you have available to you is also going to be the Pugio 2, which, while not $40 off, $20 off, still a great price point, where this one's also normally $100. This one is going to be wired and wireless, so you get the benefit of having USB-C or 2.4 gigahertz or Bluetooth. Also having that push-fit socket design available, although it doesn't support the optical micro switches, but it does support standard micro switch customization. And this having a really cool underglow design, more RGB lighting zones, so 1, 2, and 3 that you have there. Overall, really, really great mouse. This one is $79, so $20 off for the Pugio 2. So overall, two great mice that you can go ahead and pick up right now if you're interested in maybe upgrading what you have right now. Hey, David, sorry you can't stick around for the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, but thanks for joining us here for the stream. Can you imagine the robots? Yeah, there's a lot, right? That there's a lot of actuation, right, for the robot to having to test that. Yes, you are correct, right? All right, guys. So let's get ready to go ahead and kick off our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. We've got some absolutely really stunning builds to be able to go ahead and show off in today's Spotlight. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right. All right, so let me go ahead and bring up, let's see my first build over here. And let's see who we're going to start off with. Let's go ahead and start off with Esteban. All right, so here we go. Let's see. Esteban's got a pretty cool, nice, clean setup here. He's got, of course, his monitor. He's got, of course, one in that classic vertical orientation now that is becoming so popular. And then we can see right here a really nice, cool kind of compact build in one of the new fractal torrent chassis, which I love the look. And of course, they're focused on airflow. You can see we've got, looks to be actually like a mini ITX right here. So this is the small compact fractal chassis. I know Snef did a beautiful build in this chassis right here. Really cool design here in terms of the cables, the layout. This is well done. And then of course that really sweet ROG Gen 2 cooler in there. So let's go ahead and take a closer look here. Oh, this is looking pretty nice. Yeah, very, very cool. I love the kind of the front facade on here. Very strong identity for the chassis. Some nice touches here, of course, in terms of the lighting. Really kind of complimentary here. It's got the Founder Edition card, ROG Strix I series board, the ROG Gen 2. Got the nice stat readout. Of course, this is the same cooler I've got right here on the bench. Some nice, actually cool RGB fans that we have set up in there. I really like his cables too. I'm not normally always a fan of RGB cables. I tend to usually be a fan of actually non-RGB cables. I like the kind of the clarity and the consistency of the colors and the saturation, more defined saturation that's present in there. But when they're done right, they can look pretty cool. And this has definitely got a cool design aesthetic. A lot of credit here in terms of having this well laid out and good breathing room, even though we're talking about a very compact base system. These, of course, team group memory in there. Really, really nice diffused lighting that we have there on the RGB. And then I think we've got a video here. Oh, hold on. I think on this one, it's in a different format. I think I've got to open it through, give me a second. I don't think I have my HVAC installed. So I'm going to need to open it up through VLC or something like that. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Okay, here we go. This should be okay now. There we go. Okay, cool. Let's take a look at this little video that we got here for this build. That's pretty cool. You can see it. Yeah, really cool. Beast builds. Love that. Yeah, really, really nicely done. Very, very clean laid out. Like the nice little soft kind of synth kind of color scheme that we have there in the back. I think this turned out really, really nice. This is definitely kind of my kind of build, I think, for a mini ITX based system, right? You still get a truly compact system, but you're not compromising on a good kind of airflow, and overall have very, very high performance. Got still good flexibility in terms of kind of the ability to be able to access everything and lay everything out. So I think very, very solid build overall. Hopefully everybody else thinks that I think this has turned out pretty nicely. Let's go ahead. What picture do we want to settle on right here? Sorry, give me a second. Let's go ahead and settle, I think, on that shot. I think that's a good shot right there. We go ahead and bring up his submission form really quick. And we'll go ahead and take a look at it right here. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let's see. When we take a look at the submission build, it wasn't his first build. It wasn't, of course, sponsored. There was overall no theme that was actually defined. So I guess just nice, cool, clean-looking build. 3 words to describe the build: stylish, flashy, and compact. I don't really think it's that flashy, even though we definitely have some kind of RGB lighting. We've got definitely these cables here. I don't necessarily think it's flashy. It might be a little bit bright, but I think it's got good contrast between the darker zones and the brighter zones that are in there. No name that was present on this system. This was based off an ROG Strix X570-I, the Ryujin 2. Then we have a 3080 Ti Course FE card, and then the fractal design Torrent Nano case. About $2,600 total budget that we have in there. Let's see right here. He was most proud of overall just kind of the great looks and, of course, the high-end performance that the system offers. Is there anything that would change about the build? Maybe slim fans in the bottom. I don't think you have to necessarily change them. I don't know how much you're running into. You might be sometimes with having something so close to each other, you could be potentially having what's called turbulence. So turbulence could actually be an unwanted kind of noise effect. It could also be affecting a little bit of airflow, but that could be can also be changed up by the type of the fans that you utilize. Actually the XF120 fans that we have are actually tuned to kind of reduce that type of characteristic. But I think this works well. So if everything's working well, I wouldn't necessarily change it out. And keep in mind that even if you went with slim fans, you could be compromising on some of the actual static pressure and the CFM performance. So you get into a tricky balance in there of like, what are you really gaining just by going with the slim? But overall, I could see why maybe it could be something you might want to change out. About 2 hours to build it. That's really a great time for such a nicely done and clean and well executed system. Pretty much uses it for gaming and productivity. And he's a big fan in terms of kind of ASUS's just holistic integration of their software and their hardware experience. I'm assuming that's probably our ASUS UEFI and kind of the Armory crate and our fan calibration options and things along those lines. Overall, Esteban, you definitely get a solid thumbs up from me, man. It's a clean, well executed build. Let's see what we got right here. There we go, man. Very, very cool. H2O Computers gives us a clean. That's very nice. My next build will be a micro. Okay, micro ATX. That's very cool. And Michael gives us a reserve, not flashy. I would definitely agree. Hey, Young Cruz. It's unlikely that the voltage increase damaged the memory. Generally, the memory is going to have a pretty decent amount of regularity, but depends on the memory, right? Some memory has essentially more kind of headroom to be able to be pushed than other types of memory. So I don't know how much you might have kind of tweaked or tuned it in that regard. And keep in mind that with DDR5, there's also considerations with what's called the PMIC, which actually is the on memory voltage regulation, right? And not every single memory module is actually allows for kind of more aggressive voltage adjustments, right? Joseph also gives a nice thumbs up. Very cool. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our next build that we've got here. Next up, let's go with Joe Demenko, I believe. Okay. This is, I believe, another no-name base build. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we went to a larger system in ATX. And then also a system. I actually like open frame chassis, also using the Ryujin 2. And interesting, a dual GPU system, which is a bit of a rarity now because, of course, most games don't benefit from dual GPUs. But maybe he might be doing maybe some content creation or maybe GPU acceleration workloads or something like that that benefits from a dual GPU. But we can see we've got an ROG Strix board, Ryujin 2. This looks like Trident RGB memory, Radeon, kind of a reference edition or kind of founders edition series cards. And then we also got a Thor series power supply. And then this looks like probably a Thermaltake, a P series open frame chassis. So let's go ahead and keep taking a look here. Overall, this is clean and well executed for an open frame. They're always a little bit of a challenge sometimes to route the cabling, but nice and clean and well laid out. I like the way that this is implemented right here. Tight, clean cut job right here. Brave definitely in terms of using the ribbon cables, of course, for a dual GPU setup. I like the customization here with all 4 stats. So we've got the CPU temp, we've got the frequency, we've got the memory, and then we also have the primary temp right there too. So that's pretty cool, all broken down. Looks like went and stayed with the standard Noctua fans. So very nice. Those IPPC fans are great fans to use on that cooler. Gave us even a shot here at the back in terms of the cable management. Nice, clean, well executed. Nothing to complain about there. And we can also see that we have some supplemental storage there with the Seagate mechanical drive. Overall, very cool, clean, well executed build. Nothing to really, I'd say, negate on here. I like the way this turns out. Definitely a well executed build. So let's go ahead and take a look at our spotlight here. So this is going to be from Joe. You can check out Joe on Instagram at VetTech 5RX if you want to check that out. Let's see right here. Does the build have a theme? Contemporary modern. Part of the theme was to build it and see if it could be done and work, right? So I personally think seeing the final sunset on multi-GPU general home PC builds, and I want to see if these parts could be combined into kind of a good looking and functional build. So interesting. Yeah. So the fact that, of course, we're seeing less multi GPU configurations, he essentially wanted to kind of see it reintroduced here in this build, but wanted to be done in a clean and well executed way. And I definitely think that he was able to achieve that. 3 words to describe the build is open, high power, and sleek. I think all of those things would apply. Even the cable routing, it's all very sleek and well done. It's well managed right there. Does the build have a name? No. He's asking for anybody if they want to throw in a name to go ahead and consider it. What do you guys think? What would you give it as a name? Feel free to go ahead and throw it out there in the comments. In terms of the hardware, we're looking at a very high-end build. This is a Ryzen 9 5950X running on an X570-E Gaming Wi-Fi 2. So that's the latest version, which features the passive chipset design and also has the dynamic OC switcher technology, which is really cool. Some G.Skill RGB Trident memory, 128 gigabytes. Wow, that's a massive memory density right there, and running that in 3600, which is pretty impressive because as you scale up in rank and density, it becomes more challenging to be able to run higher MT in terms of the memory. So that's pretty cool. So 3600 CL16 and 128 gigabytes. He has a 980 Pro 1 terabyte drive in there, and then another 2 terabyte drive in there for games, and then a 3 terabyte mechanical drive for general storage and applications and low impact games, and then two 6900 XTs in there, which is pretty beastly. The Ryzen 2 360 that's in there, Thor 1200 watt power supply, and that's all running in that P5. Pretty sweet. That's a very, very, very cool and very high-end rig. $6,600 is the total price point in terms of the build. What was he most proud of is the overall fitment. He decided that he wanted to build a P5 case because of the size and its ability to have the hardware be displayed. He wanted to be able to have a lot of ASUS ROG hardware in there. And unlike the smaller P1 and P3 cases, the P5 can sometimes be a bit of a more challenge in terms, I think, of the spacing and the layout. And I would agree with that. Always going with the bigger chassis, while it's easier to work in, can sometimes actually be a little bit trickier to really flesh out and well balance the layout and the usage of the space. Yeah, there's no real cable channels, and the only minimal anchoring isn't necessarily ideal, right? And in the back, right, you also have a bit of challenge because there's only about 1.5 inches in terms of space. But overall, the ability to be able to kind of get everything laid out and I think cleanly routed is definitely a testament to the time and effort to be able to execute something that is sleek. And of course, that's one of the words they use to define the build. So I definitely give a nice thumbs up there in terms of the implementation. And I also like the implementation right here of the integrated controller, which comes included with the Ryzen, right, which manages RGB and the fans. So you put that to good work right here in terms of kind of having that in the back. Just put it right here, ran probably the more cables right here, streamline that, and then also could easily run the cables right here. So that was a smart kind of design layout choice right there. Anything that he would change about the build? He said that he actually would have changed and bought the Ryzen 2 360 RGB as opposed to the non-RGB model, right? At the time, he didn't know that there was going to be an RGB version, right? So that was the main reason why he went with the standard, not TUA-based version, right? He is thinking about maybe swapping out to the new Tough Gaming 120 millimeter ARGB fans. That would be a great choice because they have good static pressure, good CFM. They're even better than the sickle flow fans, which I normally recommend. So not a bad choice, and definitely much longer lifespan because they use, of course, those FDB bearings, right? So very, very nice choice in that regard. That's just overall, I think, about adding a little bit more brightness and kind of distributing the lighting around the rest of the system, right? Took him about 40 hours in terms of getting everything built up, including some custom troubleshooting issues that he had for the actual PCIe 4 riser cables, right? Which is also always a challenge. And then also making that custom PSU bracket to go ahead and get that in there too, which is actually a pretty reasonable amount of time, especially considering how clean this all came out. Uses it for gaming and work, including some games like GTA 5, X-Plane, Fallout, and of course ESO. And he is a big fan of the Ryujin 2 display and the watch display on the Thor. He's just really thinks that those are nice design touches and just help to kind of just pump up the level of the build. Overall, man, Joe, I definitely give you a thumbs up on the build. It's clean. It's well executed. I like the way that it turned out there. When are we going to have ROG RAM modules? We've got no plans for the immediate future, but if you want some ROG certified memory right now, XPG is a partner of ours, and they do actually have ROG certified DIMMs right there. Michael gives us right there a clean and efficient build with a nice thumbs up, right? So overall, very, very cool. Nicely well done. All right, let's head over to another small form factor build here. This is going to be, I believe, Polar Bear. That's what I think it was called. Yep, right here. All right. And this was a pretty cool build. Very nice. And actually white too on top of that. So this was pretty slick. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Very, very nice. We can already see right here. I'm always a fan of tower heat sinks. I love the way that this turned out right here. I've actually used this ID cooler quite a bit. Actually, it's a very nice, solid, robust tower heatsink based cooler. Nice and reasonable in terms of the price point, but good thermal dissipation performance. We've got a beautiful ROG Strix White Series card in there, right? And an ultra compact ITX based chassis too. So pretty impressive. Of course, we can see that beautiful card there in that vertical orientation. Of course, with those nice Axial Tech fans. Looking just very clean, very nice. And this is impressive in terms that you don't really see a lot of the cabling right there because of some nice, clean, efficient cable management. Good use of taking care of some of that extra space. Also giving you a little bit of pass-through flexibility right here in terms of maybe if you later need that. I like that. That's a nice touch. Some supplemental storage there with a SATA-based SSD. We've got our motherboard. We have an SFX power supply right there. And then we, of course, right here, we've got our M.2, which on this board, that tells me that this is probably one of our AMD series boards. Could be maybe an older Intel board, but probably an AMD series board. And where it has the M.2 on the back and then the M.2 also on the front. So dual M.2. Very clean, nicely done right here, pulling those cables through right there on the side, right? Not actually obstructing, of course, this venting right here, which is present. And then right there, a nice shot right there. This is really nice and clean. I really like the way this turned out. I even don't mind the not white fans right here going with the, looks probably to be Noctua fans in there just because the brown I think is complementary against this nice kind of white and a little bit of the black that's in there. And then a little bit of that RGB. I like that soft little bit of RGB. Just that fill down there at the bottom looks nice. Some spacing right there, of course, with the venting that's on there in the bottom of the chassis. Added a little bit of that fake plant there. Just give you a little bit of secondary kind of accent vibes. And that system is up and running. No RGB with the RAM, just some straight Corsair Dominators, right? Some Platinums in there. I think it looks clean, well executed. It's nicely done. This is a very stylish, clean, well done chassis. Build. I like the way this turned out. Very clean, very nicely done. Let me go ahead and bring up his submission form here and see what we've got. So this is from Gokun, I believe is the name of the builder right here. And let's see, does the build have a theme? Is a white dominated, possibly minimalistic? I would definitely agree. This is clean and minimal, right? You didn't go with a lot of complex hardware. There's not a lot of kind of specific things to kind of haul out. But at the same time, right, that's part of kind of the attention to kind of clean detail and really kind of balancing out the way that all your cables have been defined. And it's overall clean, elegant, well-styled, right, with some good kind of color theme right there with having that bold white present across so many different components, but then a little bit of contrast with the silver and the black, and then of course the Noctua there at the top, right? 3 words to be able to describe the build there: minimal, relaxing, and snowy. Okay, we can definitely go with that. Name of the build is Polar Bear. In terms of the core hardware, yes, this is an ROG Strix B550-I with a Ryzen 5600X, and then an ROG Strix 3080 card, V2 in white, and then all in a Cooler Master NR200P, also in white, and then an SFX 750 watt power supply that's in there. So very nice set of kind of core components there. Interesting if maybe he's running PBO in there too. With that cooler, you still have a little bit of thermal headroom and you can definitely take care of it. Looks like 32 gigabytes of memory, right? Running at DDR4 3200 CL16. And then we've got a couple of drives in there in terms of the SSDs. Yeah, two Samsung NVMe SSDs that are installed on there. About 2750 in terms of the overall budget for the build. Overall, kind of most proud of as a feeling, right? Minimizing my footprint feels great, but the front really makes me cheery, right? So he just loves, I think, that compact, clean, kind of nice, soft, minimalistic vibe. And I think I would definitely agree with that. Anything that he would change maybe about the build is that maybe later the top cover and make the heat pipes visible through the holes. That's how I can make fits. Maybe later. I'm not sure exactly what he means here. Top cover off. That's how I can make the fits cooler. So maybe some customization element that he's wondering about maybe to the cooler. Doesn't sound like a massive customization, but could be interesting. I think it looks pretty well as it is. Took him about 6 hours to put together, which I think is pretty reasonable. I mean, the NR200 is not too challenging with chassis to work in, but smaller builds are always a little bit more challenging. It's pretty much used for gaming, Red Dead Redemption, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Forza Horizon, some PUBG and CSGO. And he's always a big fan of the quality of ASUS hardware, especially when it comes to the ROG components and their kind of their features, function, and performance. Overall, I think it looks very, very nice. Oh, a nice comment there from Sniff is very clean. I like it. I would agree. If you can get a comment from the masterclass builder himself, Mr. Sniff, I think that you could take off your cap and say, job well done right there. H2O Computer says he digs it. Nice job. Clean and efficient build. Should name it Black Storm. Interesting. I wonder if that's for our prior build. I think that was actually a good name right there. Upgrade the plant to RGB. And then Michael also gives us Forza. Yeah, Forza is a fantastic game. Really nice to be able to jump into, take some laps, enjoy the scenery, and just have a nice kind of racing experience, right? Overall, man, very, very cool build. I think the Polar Bear definitely found its home here on the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, man. Thanks for submitting it. All right. So speaking of Sneff, actually, Sneff is our next PCDIY Builder Spotlight with gold wings. And as always, you know, it doesn't really kind of come down to whether I'm going to like it. It's just how much I'm going to like it. This is another stunning build. And I actually think even a little bit of a departure from what he's done a little bit in the past. I mean, still carries kind of the fit and the finish and the polish that we'd expect from a builder like Sneff. But I really loved some of just kind of the design elements here, which are a little bit different. I also loved kind of a little bit more traditional non-color, right? We don't see gold get used that often, but gold actually can work so well across so many different colors. It works really well against white, works really well against black. So many components are black, so you have a natural contrast right in there. And when done right, it really can just bring kind of this kind of really premium and kind of really distinct design aesthetic to it. So let's go ahead and take a look here at Gold Wings from Sneff. All right, so he gave us some great little shots right here of just some kind of before we put everything together. So we can see some beautiful kind of just gold sets of hardware that we're going in here with the fittings, right? Different brackets right here, the pump right here, right? Of course, the caps, right? All of these little pieces, right? Going into this. And now, oh, look, even customization to the power cable. I love it. Customization here to the power cable. We've got some gold, of course, thumb screws that are going on in here. I'm getting Egyptian vibes here with, of course, hieroglyphics, which is really cool, really interesting. I love the attention to detail to kind of give us some color bucking and contrast, right? Where we've got gold and white right here. And then here we actually have the opposite. We have white and then gold. So that's really cool to actually also break things up and give your eye the ability to notice what's called differences there. Some really cool kind of design work. Love these bends right here. Nice, soft, and curved with the white fluid. And then just this finish, this kind of it's like speckled or almost pearlescent. It's really cool, really, really interesting. I love the way that that kind of played out. Beautiful, of course, cables right here with the gold and the white in terms of the alternating vibe right there. Snef, absolutely stunning just work right here with this build. Very, very nice. Really interesting. Of course, we have a non-traditional orientation right here with the motherboard in a different orientation, and then the GPU visible at the top. So I really love this, right? Like normally I love to kind of see normal orientations, but I love that since here is that you had kind of a more complete theme that you were kind of considering for the build that maybe is kind of about the build as a whole, as opposed to just trying to highlight kind of components. It's really cool to kind of just be able to see it kind of from a different perspective and kind of appreciate kind of the colors that we're seeing with the components as they kind of weave throughout the kind of system, which I think is a really interesting approach. So I really actually like that this is at the top and allows you to kind of have that visual perspective that just looks really interesting with all that gold kind of bathing in that little bit of that light. Love right here, all these little accents with all the gold. Of course, excuse me, screws and fittings, right, that we have right here, which is really, really nicely done. And then, of course, you've got the white coolant that goes in there, right? And then, of course, we can see right here, really nice work down here as well. And even carrying over the hieroglyphics, it looks like these are probably SSDs, but they have, of course, nice little covers on them. Beautiful work down here. Even looks very subtle, but of course, the white, of course, pump right there. Really nice clean cable management down here. And then again, all this nice little just subtle cable routing, but still being very cohesive and consistent, maintained, and really nice clean look to it. I would agree with H2O Computers, right? Beautiful as usual, right? Wow, right? It's of course what we'd expect from a masterclass builder like Snef, who knocks it out of the park here. Fantastic. And then we see this really nice side profile, which is really interesting because it gives us an entirely different perspective than we looked at the top, which we saw that beautiful actually block. And then here it looks really cool because now we've got a lot of this kind of focus right here with just this beautiful block that's right there with the gold, right? And then the white. I really love the way that this actually turned out. Very, very, very cool. This is interesting. This is an older board because I know, yeah, we can see right here, this is a Maximus Impact series. So this is actually from an older series. And look, water-cooled memory, guys. When do we normally see water-cooled memory, right? That's pretty rare, right? But very cool to kind of be able to tie in kind of some nice, clean, tight water cooled kind of routes, right? Where if you look at this, this is a really cool kind of loop. So you got the CPU and VRM, right, which are cooled. Then of course the memory, which is cooled, and then the GPU, right? And then it's all just kind of going doot, 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 right? Yeah, you guys can quote me on that one, right? 4 doots right there. And then of course going into this really nice, of course, pump and res with the hieroglyphics right there. Pretty cool. And then I love that kind of little nice soft white that's of course in there right there. He painted the inputs white. I'm not sure. We'll have to actually see what Sniff says. If Sniff is still there in the chat, he can let you know. I'm going to read through his submission form and see what he's detailed right here. And then of course, I love the paint job, which I'm assuming it's probably a paint job, which is on the chassis, right? And then of course, the cable, love the custom cable there that just kind of just add it there to that next level of kind of rounding out the entire fit and finish to the build. Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Here you guys can totally see the paint. Totally, I said pearlescent, right? I did say pearlescent in the very beginning. And now when we carry it through all the way to that end, you can really get that pearlescent vibe there. Beautiful. And you can actually see how much more gold it has when you take away that harsher light. Well, it wasn't hard, it was still diffused, but you can see how beautiful that gold really complements that. So I can imagine actually in a room, right, for probably the person that has a system, how much nicer that even looks cohesively, right? Because that really does have that nice gold vibe to it that then carries through with the white, right? But it's not so much heavy, just like you're looking at nothing but gold, which would probably be a little bit too stark maybe for some people, but you still have that nice contrast of just that white and then that gold. And then depending on how much lighting you have, it's either going to be a stronger gold or it's going to be pulled back a little bit more and seem a little bit more speckled, right? That's really, really cool. And I like both aesthetics. They almost kind of play just depending on maybe like a day or a night type of scenario, right? Which is pretty cool. Oh, look at this. This is details. Look at this. Underneath here, even more hieroglyphics here for the back plate, right? Which that's another beautiful touch that looks fantastic there. Very, very sniff again. Hats off. Beautiful job. Another stunning build right here. I don't even know where to leave it. Did I leave it with the RGB lighting on or off? Let's go ahead and we'll leave it right there. But you said you don't even get to see all that beautiful stuff there with the top of the GPU. So I'm going to show that off one more time. You can see off all that beautiful GPU work, right? So maybe go with that one or that one. I don't even know. All right, we're going to go with that one for right now. But let's see right there. Oh, very, very cool. So that's wrapped with white vinyl. Very, very cool. Interesting. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look through the submission form here. Give me actually 1 second. I'll pull up the actual submission form. Okay. So, and of course, guys, if you guys want to, you can check out Sniff on Instagram. You can check him out on Facebook. If you guys haven't, make your feeds more beautiful by looking at some of his work, because it's just a lot of gorgeous PC building for inspiration. All right, let's go ahead. Does the build have a theme? Ancient Egypt, right? The vulture goddess. The case name came from the idea, which is, of course, the chassis that's used here is the EK Vulture. So that makes sense, right? What are 3 words used to describe the build? Is gold, gold in all little details. I would 100% agree with that. That's definitely on point. The name is Gold Wings. So in terms of the core components, it's actually a retro-based build here, right? So this was actually built in 2015, right? So even showing you back then, and I think his execution has only even gotten better, right? And of course, I can see now actually the date, right? Because his photography, I would say, is even better. And here was already pretty good, but his photography's even gotten better over the last few years, right? And that's always just like anything. If you do it more, you get better and better at it, right? But this was at its core, right? When it was got put together, was a Core i5 4690K. And that was on a Maximus 7 impact. And then there was 2 16 gigabytes of memory Corsair Dominator GTs. GTX 970 card there, water cooled, right? And the EK Vulture, a 1000 watt power supply, Flex Store M.2 M6E SSD, and then 256 gigabyte SATA drives, which makes sense, right? Because we don't generally usually see SATA drives shown off a lot. So it makes sense why this is a little bit of a throwback, right? In terms of that. What aspect is most proud of? The theme and the custom gold-plated water block, the fittings, and the custom reservoir. I would agree, and the cool thing is that this shows you how a really nice, strong thematic build, even really kind of before RGB lighting, because this was at the era where we're only just starting. I think this was around one of the first boards that was just introducing RGB on just the PCH. So we hadn't really entered into the RGB era. Can show you how just what's nice, clean, simple lighting, focused design, you can have a beautiful aesthetic that still feels like it was built now, right? Minus just probably a little bit of some of the color design on the motherboard. This could almost pass, right, as being something that would be current, right? Nothing that he would change about the build, and I agree. I think it looks fantastic, really nicely done. I love the way that this turned out. How long did it take? Just remember it was in 2015. The build was for EK's head office in Slovenia. That's pretty cool. That's an honor to be able to kind of get to put together something for them. He was a really big fan of the Maximus 8 Impact, by far one of his absolute favorite mini ITX boards. This is a board that I worked very closely on with feedback and development with our headquarters team. A lot of really cool innovations that we did with things like the, of course, vertical PCB power design, a lot of these specialized add-in cards, the high quality discrete audio design, high performance, just mini ITX board, right? We really tried to push the envelope in a lot of different ways, right? So really, really cool in terms of that regard. Overall, Snef, another fantastic build. And even though not a current build from you, another stunning build. Very, very cool, man. Thank you so much for submitting it. Another just great build, which shows off just your skill, your expertise, your creativity, and your passion, and definitely one of the just best builders and modders in the game. So thank you so much for submitting it. All right, so let me see here. I think we're going to probably have time for maybe one more build here. Let's see. Got Gold Wings from Sniff, Esteban, Joe, Polar Bear. Let's see here. Let's go with, I think we've got one from Shane. Yeah, let's go with Shane's build right here. This is, I believe, his dark hero base build. So this is the hero from Shane. And let me go ahead and load up his images here. All right. Ooh, interesting. Pretty cool. We've got, let's see, we've got a Ryujin. We've got a Strix LC series card in there. We've got definitely some bold and bright RGB going on. Definitely, I don't mind anything about that. It's nice, it's clean, it's well executed. I generally prefer a horizontal GPU, but you know, the LC card has a really strong and bold ID design that works really well vertically, and especially this part of the design definitely unquestionably looks best when it's vertical, and it's only visible vertical, so it makes sense. The only thing that for me, just maybe a little bit, I would maybe go with diffused LEDs because I prefer that over hard LED lights. But sometimes some people like that, and some designs actually I think it works better because it just depends on kind of what the point was, right? But overall, we can see we've got a lot of hardware packed in here. We've got a Hero, we've got a Ryujin 2, we've got a Strix LC series card in there. We've got some accents in there. We've got a push and pull fan configuration in there. That's pretty crazy. Then more RGB fans here with another radiator here. You definitely see you've packed in a lot of hardware. That's one of the challenges with having a dual AIO based system. So you've got an AIO for the CPU and then the AIO with the graphics card in there. But you know, for that, I will say I give them a big thumbs up to be able to go ahead and get that all packed in there and have it actually still be pretty clean in terms of the actual layout and not having anything obstructed and actually having pretty good visibility. We've got visibility nice here of the Ryujin pump head, still even of your memory. We've got a little bit on there on the IO shroud, the GPU, and then this section right here is unobstructed. And I do like the accent lighting that's there. Just like I said, maybe I would have gone with diffuse strips. Oh, wow. I really actually like it with no RGB lighting. Or maybe even just white light might be kind of interesting. I really like it like this. I think it looks really nice like this because you get the chrome accents that kind of come off. I like actually the subtle touch of just adding a little bit of kind of just some branding there with the ROG right there. I think this looks really nice in this. And I do actually like the blue, gray, and black right here. So then I would wonder, maybe I think the white would have gone really good. Maybe do white right here could work really nicely. But even if they were all black and you kept that all centered out and maybe just had this, just have color, that could be kind of cool. And then of course the stat readout from the Ryujin 2. That's pretty interesting. I wonder if you have other lighting options here. Now we don't have other lighting options to kind of see how that would have played out. I would have really liked to see what that might have looked like in that configuration. What does everybody else think? What are their thoughts? Like, I don't mind this color scheme, this RGB, but I feel like almost I would have loved to see a purposeful color choice with maybe just going with like white or maybe just like blue so that we have that center in on that and then work against the black. I think that could have been interesting. And these, I don't know that these even need to be RGB because I think that they added a little bit more light. I think actually having this section be blacked out a little bit more gives us a little bit more kind of like stealthy vibe to it that works out really well, where I really like the way that this actually has a little bit more of this kind of stealth out. And that's why I was thinking maybe white. But overall, very cool. It still looks really, really nicely done. H2O says it does look good without the RGB, right? H2O computers, I have some other submissions in there. I just didn't literally get into them, so you might have yours in there. I just don't know. I've got about 3 or 4 more in there, but just not enough time today to be able to get to all of them. So definitely, if it's in there, I know that I've got about probably at least 7 to 10 that are still in the pipeline, so probably going to be in next week's stream. Oh, no problem, Snef, right there. Let's see right here. Looks clean and the RGB needs one color. Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think I would probably favor that one color, but I still think that the RGB looks cool. It looks well done. And like I said, part of me is just maybe is a little bit also that I wish these were maybe diffuse strips. But this still has a cool vibe to it. I'm sure if you actually pulled back, if we had a shot that didn't have it be so tight and maybe it was a little bit more diffused in terms of the lighting, we'd get a little bit more of kind of a well-balanced sense of how the lighting is playing out. Because keep in mind, you don't necessarily always see that much of the hard lights because you're looking down, right? If you're looking at it from the side, you might see some of those spotlight effects, but it might not seem as heavy. So it could actually kind of have like a little bit more of a cooler kind of bright lit aesthetic. So I could see how that could work. So I can see it in either kind of scenario. Either which way, I think it's still a nicely clean, well-executed build. Let's go ahead and take a look through his submission form. So its overall theme here was an ROG theme. 3 words to describe the build is big power, small package. Does your build have a name? Yes, the Hero. Let's see, core hardware here is that we've got the CROSSHAIR VIII Hero. Then we have an ROG Strix LC6900 graphics card, so super beastly high-end graphics card. A Ryujin 360, the V1, so the original model. Then he's running a 5900X Platinum sample. Let's see, some Team Force Extreme memory in there, CL14 3600 MT, 1000-watt power supply, and then Landly and Noctua fans, and that's all inside of a Corsair 400X chassis. About $4,000 budget. He's most proud of the quality of the build and the quality components that were used, and of course you're getting super high-end performance, and impressive to be able to pack so much hardware in a compact small chassis like that. Overall, is there anything that we change about the build? Maybe go with a custom loop versus an AIO for the cooling. I definitely think with the high-end 5900X like that, depending on if you're overclocking it using PBO, you could benefit potentially going from that, and it would probably keep your system potentially quieter, you know, and you could manage, I think, still you wouldn't take up a lot of space. The benefit is that just going with a kind of standard, even a slim 240 rad and then a small pump and reservoir that you could fit, right? And then just blocking off just the CPU. And keep in mind that we have a CPU and VRM block, which would be kind of cool to give you a RGB look. I think it'd actually really work in here, and you wouldn't have to block the GPU because the GPU is already getting really good temps. So I could see that. I mean, the Ryujin is a really nice cooler, but I could see going to maybe like a mono block or a CPU block. The nice thing about going with the CPU block too is that CPU blocks last a really long time, and they can go even generally from generation to generation. So I could see that. How long did it take him to put together the system? About 3 hours. Predominantly uses it for gaming, 3D printing, and video editing. He's a big fan of the ASUS Armory Crate and kind of RGB ecosystem. That's a great thing. Using the Landly fans, the LC fan, LC card, and then the Ryujin 2, along with the motherboard, everything syncs together so you can easily control RGB lighting through Armory Crate and through Aura Creator, and plus have access to all the peripherals and all the items all in one-stop shop. Overall, man, gets a nice solid thumbs up for me. I think it's clean, it's well executed, definitely an achievement for a small, tight, compact chassis like this, and it's got definitely a cool, distinctive aesthetic. Yep, nice and tight. All right, guys, so that wraps up our stream. Thanks so much for joining us, man. And as always, if you guys have your own builds that you're working on, upgrades, tweaking and tuning, best of luck with it. If you guys are not, make sure to go ahead and join our ASUS PCDIY group. It's a great community that we have. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, you want to share your builds, you want to share your posts, whatever it might be, feel free to go ahead and do that inside the group. I'm going to go ahead and drop a link in the chat. If you guys are not part of our group, we'd love to have you there. And you can go ahead and, like I said, tag me if you have any questions regarding any ASUS products or anything along those lines. And we have a great set of users that are in that group to be able to go ahead and preview you guys insights and so many other things as well. So again, if you're not part of our group, consider joining us there. I'd love to have you. All right, guys. So with that, take care. With that, take care. Take it easy. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe and stay healthy. All right, guys.